Hello, friends. I hope you are doing well and enjoying spring. Well, unless you're in Australia and New Zealand, down in that hemisphere of the world, because I guess it's fall for you. I have a really good friend that's in Sydney, so I have to think about that. In my last video, which was, I have to keep going back to my notes to check here, was MLM Journal Entry 8, Tupperware, the fourth time. This video is part of my ongoing series of my MLM, multi-level marketing journey of being in multi-level marketing or direct sales network marketing 29 times over a 40-year period. And I will put the last video in the series in the description box below so that you can go back and look at that video first. Because it's best to watch these videos in sequence since we're following a history in chronological order. All right, so here going back to the journal, and here we are on page 22. And we are at number 8. And this is Tupperware. Again, in 1991, the last I had talked about, I went on my mission with the LDS Church, the Latter-day Saints, Mormons. And now I'm back. So 1999 fall. I was 29 years old after my mission, living in Riverside, going to school at RCC, which is Riverside City College. That's the local community college. Working for a lady who I knew in my ward at church who did Hawaiian luau's catering. And at this time, I was her secretary. And then when she did the catering jobs on the weekends, most of the luau's they would do is on the weekends, like for people in Laguna Niguel, upper class people that had lots of money to have these nice, beautiful luau's and have hula dancers and fire dancers and all this fun stuff. And anyway, I would go on the weekends too and help out with serving the food. Sometimes I'd help with the food prep as well, since that was my background. So I was just doing a lot of stuff for her. And it was about a 30-hour-a-week job. I'll go into that in a minute. Let me finish reading the journal entry. I was also doing the Army Reserves. You know what? I wasn't. I wrote it down in here, and I'll explain that as well. Doing that on the side. Oh, and talk about burnout. Okay, so this story with Tupperware is a very short one, because what happened was, God, when you come off a mission with the church, Dr. Stephen Hassan, the cult expert that created the BITE model for high demand organizations, he's a cult expert. He describes the Mormon mission to living in a cult, because we're not allowed to watch TV, we're not allowed to listen to the radio, watch the news, read the news. We have to stay immersed in the preaching the gospel, focusing on that. And I will talk about that in my other series, Growing Up Mormon and Then Leaving, when I get to that point. Because right now, that series, and I will do a video today in the next segment when I'm still 12 or 13 years old. So we still got years before we'll get to the mission. Because you go on a mission, when you get back from something like that, I mean, I was selling Tupperware before the mission, and I was in the reserves, Army Reserves. I was making decorated cakes on the side because I'd become a master cake decorator for the Army. And then I was working for Mary Maids, cleaning houses. So 18 months, all I did was knock on doors in Italy, learn the language, learn how to speak Italian, memorize the discussions that the church wants us to teach, and go out and look for people to teach the gospel to. I was selling Mormonism. That's what I was doing. We're taught how to sell religion. That's what I did for 18 months. So now that I'm home from that, it's really hard to integrate back into a so-called normal life. You want to go back to do things you're comfortable with and familiar with. And so, of course, since I'd been in Tupperware, how many times? Say I lose count. 4 times by this point. It just made sense to me to go back and start selling Tupperware again. And the crazy thing was, I wanted to go to, I was going to school, I was going to college at Riverside City College. And by this time, there were 3 campuses. There was the main one in Riverside, downtown, and then there was one in Corona, California, which is the next city over, and one in Moreno Valley, which is also the next city over on the other side. And I'll give you my schedule, okay? 7 in the morning at the main campus in the pit, we called it, because it's where the football field was. It was down in this ravine. There were racquetball courts, and I had racquetball. 8 o'clock, I had to walk a half a mile, get out of the pit, and go over to my sister Sybil, lived 3 blocks from the campus. That's where I parked my car because I couldn't park on campus because there was so many students. They didn't have enough parking. So I had to walk half a mile, get in the car, go to Corona campus for my Spanish class. I was taking Spanish. And I had a really hard time trying to get Italian out of my head to learn Spanish because I felt like I live in Southern California. There's a lot of Spanish speakers. I'd like to learn a language that I can actually use in something. And then I'd finish there and have to go all the way over to Moreno Valley within the next hour for my algebra class. And then I would be done by, say, 1 o'clock. I'd go to the catering office and start working. And I'd work there till 6. And you talk about burnout. And I was living sharing a house, a 4-bedroom house with 3 other students who were going to UCR, that's University of California, Riverside. And I was trying to get my general ed done at RCC so I wanted to go to Brigham Young University. That was where I was trying to get into. And BYU, they totally fucked my paperwork up. I was so mad at them. They're supposed to be this higher education university, and they couldn't even get my paperwork right. And by that time, I had had 2 years of college. They wanted me to take SATs and ACTs, and I was like, fuck you. I don't have to prove myself to you that I'm good enough to go to your stupid school. Anyway, and at that time, I wanted to go to BYU Jerusalem. That campus they closed, but at that time, it was a big deal to be able to go to Brigham Young University in Jerusalem. Wow, what an opportunity that would have been. But they screwed it up, and I gave them the middle finger and said, you know what, you're not all like that like you think you are. Brainwashed, growing up in the Mormon church, thinking that BYU is the place you need to go to get your education. And there's a whole nother story I could tell about that. But so at this point, I am really burning the candle at both ends. And this was the thing, was my reserve status. I was on inactive status because I had been gone for 18 months. And actually, my unit deployed to Iraq. And I tried to go with them, but they told me, you stay put where you're at on your mission. We don't want you leaving the ministry to come. Okay, and I have really conflicted feelings about that because I joined the military to serve my country. And here my unit was going out to deploy to Iraq. And this is in the first Gulf War. Yeah, 1990 they were leaving. And I said, I want to come home and go with you guys. And they said, no, you stay where you're put. You're doing the Lord's work. You need to stay there. And they wouldn't let me come home and join them. And I was really upset and really conflicted about that because I wanted to serve. And our mission work really took a back seat because the Italians at the time blamed us for what was going on over there. And we couldn't even speak English out of the house. We had to take our name tags off so we weren't associated with the church, but yet we were trying to sell Mormonism in Italy. I mean, it was just crazy. So anyway, getting home and trying to get back into a active reserve unit, they weren't taking anybody. And here I'd been active duty. Usually they want active duty right away to go into the reserves. And they were like, we're not taking anybody. Everybody's still over in Iraq. And so I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do without being in the military? I mean, you've been in, by that point, I'd been in 7 years, 6 years. It becomes a way of life for you. And And so I was just like, oh God, I don't know what to do. So I'm going to school. I'm taking 13 units and then working 30 hours a week. So what's the thing I'm going to do to try to make more money fast? Well, I'm going to go back into Tupperware, of course. And I made a mistake in my last video when I was talking about the lady who was my manager in Tupperware. There's a couple of times I signed up with Tupperware out of the distributorship in Riverside that I just can't remember who my manager was. I think the lady I told you was my manager in the last video was actually the one I signed up with this time. Her name was Debbie. I can't remember her last name. Really nice lady. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she had the van, so she did very well as a manager. She promoted managers. That's what they want you to do when you become a manager. They want you to sign up all your clientele under you and make managers out of them. And this was where I was starting to see more about that issue, that problem with they want you to sell their products, but now they want you to recruit all your customers to become managers. And it's like, then who am I going to sell to if I sign up all my customers? And then the thing I started noticing too was that Tupperware changes their colors every year. They add new products that they think are trending, but they change colors because they target people who want to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. They want their kitchens to have this pristine cupboard organization with everything that matches. My sister Sybil was one of those people because she had money and she liked to stay up with trends, and I could always rely on her to be my best customer. She would have a party or two and redo her whole kitchen to what the colors were at the time. And the thing too was, now that I was off my mission, I was doing what the church taught me to do, and that was to find a husband and start having a family. And a Tupperware kit, your demonstration kit, $150 of so-called free Tupperware you get to pick out. It was like a hope chest for me. I could stock my whole kitchen with product. And so at this time, I go and in order to pay for your kit, I mean, you could pay it up front. I didn't have $150 to pay. You scheduled your 6 parties. It was 6 over, I can't remember if it was over 2 weeks or over 3 weeks. 6 parties, and they take the money out and they pay for the kit. So you could actually start your business with no money and pay them off in pieces like that, which Tupperware was good about doing that. I don't know if they do it that way anymore, but that's how I did it in 6 weeks. Not 6 weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I had the kit paid off. And here I had all this Tupperware to add to all the other Tupperware I had, because I had a storage unit full of all this shit. And I just added it to it. Because what happened was, oh God, let's see, I started school the end of August. By the end of September, I was burnt out. I remember Sunday would come around and you're supposed to spend all day in church, 3 hours, and I was in the singles ward, and they wanted me to, it seems like I was a state missionary. Since I'd been just on a mission, they wanted me to keep doing missionary work. Sunday would come around and I did not feel like going to church. I wanted to sleep. I was so damn tired because I had worked all day the day before on a catering job for my job, and I had schoolwork. And it was like, no social life. I was too tired to have a social life. And I need to back up a little bit, because when I first got off my mission, I lived with my oldest sister, Judy, the one that was in Creative Circle, and you hear that in the very first MLM entry. I went back to St. George to live with her because I was going to go to Dixie College. It's not called Dixie College anymore. It's a university. And I don't remember the name of it. You'll have to Google it. But I was going to stay there and go to school. I was actually waiting for a guy to get off his mission. I'd met him in the missionary training center in Provo when I was training to be a missionary. We met and we just kind of clicked, and we wrote to each other the whole time and thought that there was something there. And I was waiting for him to get home. And then I was finding out that, yeah, he was getting home and he wanted to go back with his old fiance. So he's dumping me. But anyway, I could tell another story about that. It was just all my crazy marriage type of relationships that blew up in my face. There were 6 of them before I met my husband. And so at this point, okay, at 29 years old and going to all this school and driving all over Riverside and Corona and Moreno Valley, I really didn't have a lot of time to be doing Tupperware parties at night to become a manager. I got my kid paid off, and then I'm pretty sure what I had was like a nervous breakdown. I remember with my boss being Mormon, her husband's office was right next door. I remember going to see him and having him giving me a priesthood blessing for comfort, because I just felt like everything was falling apart. And what I did was, after I left, I know I'm jumping around. After I left St. George after 5 weeks, because for one thing, I just didn't like living with my sister. I'd lived with her before, way back when I talked about that, when I was living in Utah the first time. But I tried living with her this time in 5 weeks. I was working at a laundry linen service where we did the laundry for the hotels that service Zion National Park and around St. George. And so you're on these huge commercial iron presses. It's so boring for minimum wage, and I got tired of it. And I didn't like living in Utah. I really didn't. I don't like the culture, the Mormon culture there. And here I was a Mormon, and I just, there was a missionary on my mission who we came back from Italy together on the plane, and he lived outside of Oakland, outside of San Jose. We had spent the whole plane trip, so 13, 15 hours between Italy, going to New York and across the United States to Utah. And we sat and we talked to each other, and we really hit it off well, like brother and sister. He invited me, him and his family invited me to come up there and stay with them in Morgan Hill outside of San Jose. And I had gone there, and I had stayed there for 5 weeks first, went back to work for Mary Maids, and I just kind of felt like I wanted to go back to Riverside, to where my roots were. Okay, so that's where I went. And so that's where I got the job back with the catering. I should have told this story, because like I said, this whole time in my life was just so crazy. When I got to tell this story and I just think about everything that was happening, my mind just gets overwhelmed. So I was back in Riverside and I was going to school. Okay, and then by end of September, that missionary friend was getting married. He brought a girl from Italy. And it happens a lot. They bring them back from their missions and they marry them. And I went up there to see them in San Jose. And I helped his mother, his name is Tim, I helped his mother make his wife, Mara, her wedding dress. Because I had made my sister, Sybil's wedding dress when I was 17. Anyway, so I helped her make her wedding dress, and then because I'd taken floral design as a senior in high school, I was a certified floral designer, I did the flowers for them. And this was where I was finding out that missionary that I was talking to wanted to go back with his fiancée, and he was dumping me, and I just felt like, my God, I've been off the mission 6 months now, and I should be finding a mate to get married. And so I moved back up there to San Jose, Morgan Hill. I dropped out of school from RCC. Dropped 2 months into the semester, I dropped all my classes, which, oh God, now that's one of those things, I don't like having regrets, but that's one of those things I wish I could have at least stayed and finished the semester, so I would have got the credit for the schoolwork. But I was failing algebra. I had a hard time with algebra. And I was Spanish. Everything was jumbled up in my head as Italian, because I spoke it as a missionary for a year and a half. And that does happen to a lot of people. So yeah, I had gone back to Riverside and packed up all my stuff, told my roommate I give her notice, which for her it was just a matter of, you don't have to give me notice. I can find somebody else to take your place, just like that. My kit with Tupperware was paid off because I'd done my parties. And pretty sure my manager, she knew what a hot mess I was, that she didn't try to like mold me to become a manager like her to recruit people. She wasn't pressure at all. And I know it's because she could see what a mess I was. I mean, because these people, these women, they are smart enough to be able to pick who they want on their team to work with. They're not going to just pick some hot mess because they know people. Well, some people will, but I haven't met a lot of people that were like that. My experience with the multi-level marketing wasn't that at this point. It got that way later, and I'll talk about that as we go. I mean, I've got some fake friends that they were friends just because they wanted me to sign up in their goddamn multi-level marketing business. But that'll come later. So this is where I'll leave the story because I switched gears and moved back to Morgan Hill with my friend who's getting married, and it moved in with his family. They had this huge, beautiful house near the Anderson Reservoir up there in Morgan Hill. So I had my own room, and a job came up with one of the men at church who had a carpentry. He did work for the church, working on the meeting houses. He needed a carpenter's apprentice. He hired me. I was making like $12 an hour. And this is, like I said, 1991. It was decent money, teaching me how to be a carpenter. And I did not get back into Tupperware yet until I got married. And so that'll be the next story, which I'll do next week. Because, more happens between then and when I joined Tupperware and why I joined the next time. So this one was a short, like I said, this one was a short one. I was in, 2 months, and then I moved. And like I said before, anytime you move and you're selling Tupperware, you have to start all over again everywhere you go. And by this point, I was focusing on other things. Okay, thank you for watching. If you feel inclined, please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. If you feel inclined, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much.